blockchain technology, right? And I'm going to have a whole write-up of who Jordan Miller is, and I'm sure you have descriptions and bios and stuff available because you speak at stuff. But what if you were trying to explain to a high schooler that's like trying to understand and wrap their head around blockchain technology, where is this stuff? Where is it hosted? What's going on?
Okay, so blockchain technology provides is a technology that does one thing. You know, it's used for a whole bunch of stuff, but fundamentally, it really only provides distributed consensus, and that's the innovation. So it doesn't do anything else, you know. So distributed consensus, decentralized consensus. So this is the idea that before blockchain technology came along, before Bitcoin specifically, if you wanted to know that you were in consensus with somebody across the world, with a group of people around the world, there was no way to do that unless you kind of all talked to one person and they put it in the database. This is what we all know, and then everybody could ask them. So you were always relying on a single point to be like, yes, you know. And so that was kind of how we had to do things. And so, you know, I guess that's it. Blockchain allows us to say, actually, the network itself, we can decentralize it all the way down to every participant in the network. The network itself, we can rely on it to tell us what everybody else believes. So that's distributed consensus. We don't rely on one entity, and if we did, that entity could lie. It could tell this group of people one thing, tell that group of people another, and so it's hard to do like money in that way because that person now has an incentive to lie. So you know, Bitcoin is obviously the first. Money is the first thing that comes to mind. Why don't we use this for money? It's very simple. You only need to remember one number. And so it's naturally a form of money.
Cool. So it's our ability as a species to get down to just raw truth for each individual.
Yes. We need to know that we are in consensus, that we believe the same thing that everybody else believes.
Gotcha.
Yes.
So in general, right, that does wonders because there's a couple billion of us on the planet currently. And I would imagine, what percentage of people do you assume even know that this shit exists? And that
Did you say percentage? What a percentage of what?
Like the total human population, right? Like what would you imagine would be the amount of people that actually understand this to some capacity?
Oh, you know, I don't know. With the crypto craze, and then, you know, what happened is this distributed consensus technology, it has a lot of potential. But in my opinion, it has most of its potential overseeing what we do in governments, and you know, it's a governance structure, and really it has a few use cases in money. So, but because money is so, you know, has such incentive, that's what everybody uses it for.
That's the first thing. That's the first thing you think of, yeah.
Yes, and so then you get these meme coins, NFTs, you get all this kind of expressions of some kind of value, but usually turn into kind of a scamming situation. Right. So in my opinion, look, with distributed consensus, the point of the technology is to allow us to coordinate and as a community, choose how to use resources. So it's but we I don't think as a species we've realized that we should just kind of use it for that, and so we typically don't. You know, like governments should adopt this. We should have voting on this. You know, because it's everybody knows what everybody voted or could, and so you know, it can't be rigged. That kind of thing we should do out in the open. You know, there's lots of shared resources that we have to share that we don't manage on a distributed consensus network. Yeah. So in my opinion, any shared resource could be probably helped by management in this way.
So it's this kind of guaranteed. We're going to end up in this system regardless in the future, right? It's the matter of time is based on who can really understand the importance of honesty, right, and truth, and actually wants to use that in a productive, useful way.
Yes.
Okay. So, for instance, for someone that has not entered any, doesn't even have any cryptocurrency, right? Doesn't have an NFT, right? What are the first couple steps that someone takes to start getting into this world?
I would say go back to the basics. What are the things that you might think have value? So if you think, well, the largest network, you might go back to Bitcoin. You might say, well, that probably has some value. Everybody kind of cares about that one. If you say, well, I want programmable money, then you might say, well, maybe Ethereum has some value. Some of its competitors, these are large-scale things. So I would say, first of all, don't just jump into any coin. It's a meme coin. It's a brand new thing. Find something that you like, that you think has value. And if you don't know, go with the safest, broadest, things that have utility. So I would say that. The second thing I'd say is then learn how to be secure in your data management. So, whatever that means, like a password manager might be helpful. Learning how to write down your seed phrase for your wallet and keep it somewhere safe. And so it's not on a picture on your phone, which could get hacked and then all your money's gone. So learn how to manage some secrets safely. Keep them secret. And then the last thing is, I guess, execution. Just put a little bit of money into this thing if you think it's worth anything. And keep it secret, keep it safe. And that's all I would say. DCA, and don't put anything into crazy stuff. Don't put any more than you think it's worth or that you can lose. And so just be safe and dip your toe in.
Wonderful advice. In terms of the safety thing, right? In terms of this, I assume that you're talking about a wallet, right? And it gives you these words, and that
yes.
they have it's for the security of your individual wallet that has the opinion, the consensus thing that we were talking about before.
Yes.
Right. So, okay, I don't know much about what hackers can do, right, online. I have no idea. Videos that I saw, documentaries that I saw, if your phone, people can just swipe all of your data off your phone if you don't have a password on it, right? If you're just walking around in the streets. And that's the world that we're getting into here.
Yes.
Right? So, what in terms of data safety, in terms of password safety and all of that stuff, right? What would you use, or what do you use as ways to, as strategies for securing that information from these cyber attacks?
Yeah. So I kind of think of it as maybe 4 levels. So the first level, the very top level is just, it's on my phone and I can, I've got this little pass, what is it, like the 5 numbers or something, we've got to type the pass key. So I've got that and that's it, right? And so that's not a lot of security, but it's something, so, but it's very low. The second thing is, and I'm actually going to list this in terms of, let's say you have some money that you have in crypto and you keep it in various places. So let's go there. So maybe the next level is, I have some money and I just keep it on an exchange. And exchanges can get hacked, right? So now you're opening up like third party, if they don't have their stuff taken care of, you're in trouble. So they can get hacked, they can go down. It's probably happened to most people that's been in crypto for any amount of time. So be careful about that. So if you're going to keep some money on an exchange, keep a very small amount and just say, this is just a small amount that I, if I need to trade into something real quick, I can do it. And then you might say, well, I have a wallet it's on my phone. I keep my phone safe, and the wallet's encrypted. I understand the software that I'm using. It's not just some random wallet that I downloaded. It's kind of like the open source software that everybody's vetted, and it's very secure. So
what are those softwares?
well, I know of several. Like a lot of the ones you might use are like the exchange wallets. They're like, yeah, like MetaMask would be great. If you're into Bitcoin, there's one that I forgot the name of, but I looked at the code a long time ago because it is open source, and it was blue wallet. So there's open source ones. So I would say just kind of research it and figure out for your token, for your coin, what's kind of the open source solution that looks good and is not. Anyway, so then there's that, but that's kind of a hot wallet. A hot wallet. Because it's online, your phone is connected to the internet at all times, and so it's hot. There's some danger. Then, if you have any serious amount of tokens, I would put them in a cold storage wallet. And hopefully, by the way, hopefully any logins you're using, you keep very safe. Maybe use a password manager. That would allow you to easily create like a very secure password, and it remembers it for you, and then you have a very long secure password that you chose that you can remember for the password manager. So I would say that's tier 3, I guess. But then the cold storage wallet, if you have any serious amount, put it in a wallet that does not have a representation on a device that is online. So it's not on your phone, and this is called a cold storage wallet. It has a private key, so you can write down the private key or the passphrase. They have these really long private keys, that are like a bunch of text and just random gibberish. You're not going to remember that. So what they did is they said, well, okay, we'll chunk these into passphrases, that are like 12 or 24 words long, and you can kind of write that down more easily. And so write that down, keep it in a safe place, and now the tokens are basically in that cryptographic wallet, as opposed to like a software wallet, right? They're in that cryptographic wallet, and nobody can get them unless they break cryptography or guess, or the chances are minimal that anything bad could happen. So
do you plug this wallet in manually then when you're trying to do transactions with that currency inside there?
So that's that. I think what you're describing there is like a hardware wallet.
Okay.
And I have a hardware wallet, but I typically don't use it very often. Like I know people that do; they love their hardware wallets, but I've always thought, well, hardware, it can have problems too, if it gets wet and everything. So I know people love it, but I've always been weary. So I like just the cold, old-fashioned storage. It doesn't cost anything. It's easy. But if you're constantly needing to connect your nest egg, right, your large amount of tokens to the internet, maybe a hardware wallet is for you, but you have to do the research and figure that out.
So you're saying that this cold wallet is still somewhere digital?
Yes.
So these are two different types of, like the MetaMask and the blue thing that you were talking about. That's kind of like a public wallet.
Well, I would say like this: a wallet is a private key. It's a piece of information. That is the wallet. And then there's the software around that wallet that helps you use it and helps you like use that private key to make a transaction on the chain. And so that has to be connected to the internet. It has to broadcast out a transaction and tell everybody. So we use the term wallet to mean both the software and kind of the actual private key inside. But I would make that distinction when I say like a cold wallet. I mean, it's just the private key you wrote down and you have, and you can go back and retrieve it whenever you need it and put it into a wallet software and then use it on chain and make transactions. But in order to keep it safe, you don't keep it in that wallet software, which is online, which can be hacked potentially. So you keep it offline, and you don't even have it represented anywhere that's connected on the internet.
So is it like you're just permanently logged out of MetaMask?
Yeah, it's kind of like that.
And then whenever you actually need to get in, you plug in this key, and now you are in that system doing the things that you need to do with the transaction.
That's right.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay, cool. Thank you. I'm sorry to take you all the way back. I'm sure you have all this crazy knowledge, but it's just stuff that, at the end of the day, no one knows the shit that isn't in it. They have no idea.
These fundamentals are very important. Yeah.
And it's so important because you're gonna transfer maybe hundreds of thousands of dollars over your lifetime, millions of dollars over your lifetime, and then someone can just like that take all your stuff.
Yep. Yeah. And if you don't know, you're like, and then the website says, "Oh, just put in your private key here," and you're like, "Okay." You got to be careful. You got to kind of know something that says private. Just keep it private.
and that's it's a strange thing in the world that we're living in today that even basic passwords, like I can think of my own passwords on the bruh. Like, if someone actually wanted my shit, probably wouldn't be that hard. But
right.
That's just the life that we live, right? We make all these accounts and we do all this stuff and we assume that we're gonna be totally safe, but the world that we're going into, this is a uncharted, very chaotic environment. There's the structure, the stability of the blockchain, right? The reliability of that, but with that comes the equal and opposite, the human, interest in these things and try to move forward. So it's really fascinating. I wanted to talk a little bit about Genius AI. Where did you get started with this, and what are your thoughts about it? What is Genius AI?
I don't know very much about it.
Okay.
And I don't want to say things that would be incorrect. I did watch most of one presentation about it. And I talked to the guy who was doing the presentation. I don't know how involved he is. Like, I don't know if he's a member of the marketing team. I really don't know. So that's kind of my exposure. It's not very deep.
Which currency or coin do you know a lot about, and you personally work a lot in?
Satori.
Okay, yeah. So let's talk Satori.
Okay. So Satori is a project that I started like 3 years ago. And so I started it, and I just started coding it, just on my own time, just doing it. And I did that for about 2 years. And then we launched Satori about a year, not quite a year ago. I guess it was like 7 months. So like 7 months ago. And so I'll tell you the idea behind it. The idea is, what if we had this global network of computers, which we can use a blockchain to kind of manage, right? So what if we had a global network of computers that all had a piece of software on it that was watching something out there in the real world? It could be a stock price, or, somebody's tweets that they make every day, or, it could be anything. It could be government statistics, the environment, temperatures, whatever. And so, but it's watching something. And as new data comes in every moment or every day or whenever it does, it kind of updates an idea, a model of what that data will look like in the future. And so it makes predictions. And so it starts listening, and it says, okay, I'm getting the feel for this. I see the patterns in it. I see it's kind of correlated to this thing over there, and when that does that, this does this. And so it starts figuring out, how does this thing work? I don't even know what it is, right? I'm just a computer algorithm. I don't know how to read the name of it, or whatever. So it's just looking at the raw data. And then it starts getting an idea for where it's going and how it works and what it's related to, and it makes predictions about what it's going to do. in the future. And you have a whole network of these, and as soon as it figures out, like, oh, I think it's going to do this, right? It will actually take that prediction and then broadcast it out to the network for any other of these nodes that care to listen to it. And even us, like we can just listen in on what the network is broadcasting.
Based on the information that it's told to access and look at.
Yes.
And analyze. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
And so now it broadcasts some information, and that gets consumed by another one of these nodes that says, I've noticed the thing I'm trying to predict kind of correlates with the predictions that you make. And so then it says, it updates its model based on that information, and then will broadcast out a new prediction of its data source. So this is what Satori is. It's just a network of AIs that are trying to predict the future. That's all it does.
So say there's a young programmer watching this video, right?
Yeah.
They're right out of college. Maybe they're a freshman in college, but just spent a lot of time doing this stuff. How the hell did you get involved with something like this in terms of back-end coding? Was it an interest in AI? Was it interest in data structures? Like what brought you into this?
It was an interest in AI. I had this idea way back in the day, like 2012. And I wanted to build it, but I had no idea because I was at the time like in college. And so I was trying to figure stuff out. And I wanted to build it, and I was getting aware of this blockchain concept. And so I kind of saw that we could maybe use blockchain to build an open distributed network that could accomplish this. And so I attempted it in 2013, 2014. I attempted it with a friend. We really had no idea what we were doing. We were just trying to figure it out. And our attempt at that time was to bake in the AI prediction algorithm at the very bottom of the consensus stack. And hopefully that would allow it to flourish. Like it would unfold into this network. Right? That's very hard to do.
I could only imagine, dude.
So me and my naive, I think maybe that could possibly someday be possible, but it certainly wasn't possible for me. So I put it on the back burner. I was like, it was basically saying there's proof of work, which Bitcoin, developed or whatever. And that's the consensus algorithm that manifests the network of Bitcoin. It's literally proof of work and all this stuff around it. And so the idea was, make a different consensus algorithm, proof of prediction, and then it will manifest this network of prediction, which might be possible. But again, proof of prediction is so much more complicated than proof of work that it's not going to work for me. So I put it on the back burner, and I said, you know what, I don't know how to manifest this idea right now. I like the idea, but I'm just going to have to wait. And so I kept developing, kept programming, and it was always in the back of my mind. And then, like 3 years ago or so, maybe 3.5, I was like, okay, I'm starting to see how to manifest this idea. And I had it backwards. I wanted to do everything blockchain first and AI second, or whatever. But I was like, no, maybe instead we build the AI engine and it can do its thing. We know how to just do that. That's fine. And then we put the blockchain underneath it. And we allow it to interact with the blockchain, but not necessarily be manifest from the blockchain. So that's what Satori is. Like, we figured out the right way to implement this idea, I believe.
Where did you make your biggest programming breakthroughs when it comes to creating these AIs? Like, are there any books that you would recommend? Any speakers? Any websites? Like, because this is an ongoing art form, right?
It is.
Essentially you just do years and years and years of this, and then you get to a point where you can make some shit that blows people's mind.
right. I wish I knew more about like the transformers and the latest AI stuff. And so I have to rely on others for that kind of expertise, but I was really fascinated with how the brain works. So I approached artificial intelligence by first asking, well, how does intelligence work? Like, I mean, we got a brain, how does it work? And it's probably the most efficient version of generalized intelligence. So let's start there. And the person I went to for that was Jeff Hawkins. So he has his research company, Numenta, in San Francisco. They put out a lot of good stuff. They figured out a few algorithms that the brain uses and the data structures and everything. It's really fascinating. But it shares a lot of the same principles that we see in like what's developing in AGI or AI technologies right now. But it's in some ways it seems like it's way more advanced because they're modeling this really complicated structure or brain, but they can't model the whole thing. It's very complicated. There's a lot, and so they were unable to make as much progress. Like anyway, but from there it gave me a really interesting theoretical framework by which to understand what AI is and how it works. Right? So I would say that helped me a lot. Besides that, though, maybe more on a practical scale, I worked in a business intelligence group, and I was kind of the developer in the business intelligence group. So I was building out the platforms and the reporting platforms and providing models and everything that they would need. And so that gave me the programming expertise I needed to kind of build this prototypical version in 2 years by myself, essentially. So, and then, but it also put me in contact with data scientists and actuaries and people that work with data modelers. And so I was able to see how they do what they do and kind of emulate it. And that gave me the ability to build this prototypical engine. And we've since kind of like remade the engine like a few times, but the basic loop stayed the same, the basic programming loop of the application. So I guess that's it. You know, it just took time, experience, an interesting theoretical framework, and I guess that's it.
Well, Jordan, thank you for your time. I could probably ask you a million other questions, and I will if you give me the time. Yeah, this is super interesting stuff for someone that doesn't know a tiny modicum of what you know about this stuff. And I think that this type of information needs to be put out a lot more into the world, so that the young Jordan or the young programmer, the young investor, the young CEO, that they can start understanding, like you said, the philosophy of these things. Right?
Yes.
That's really what it is that gives it power.
Yeah, totally agree.
Yeah. So we'll be in touch. I'll send you this thing if you want it. And you let me know whatever I can do for you in terms of what you're building out as well, because I want to just give things to people and have genuine experiences and just have information out there. You know,
that's great. I love it.
That's my vibe here. So
all right.
Thank you so much. Sorry for missing our last meeting. Okay.
That's all good.
No, I feel so bad about it. I'm gonna be in touch, and hopefully you have some time to do another one. And
I do. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll carry.
Yeah, let me know.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
We'll see you.
Have a great day, dude.
Thanks.